don't think I can do this job, Tim. As soon as I lay down, all I see are those kids' faces. How long you been doing this? 12 years. How do you do it?
It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen. It has already passed the illegal arms trade, and soon it's gonna pass the drug trade.
Señor Timoteo, tú rescatas niños, ¿verdad? Quizá puedas ayudarme a encontrar a mi hermana.
Imagine walking into a room right now, seeing an empty bed. What will we do?
Shivering stars drift around in the sky.
We're Homeland Security. You know we can't go off rescuing kids in Colombia.
I like all
This job tears you to pieces. This is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
We're talking about extracting an 11-year-old girl from an army of rebels.
Not just her. I'm talking about rescuing hundreds of kids.
She could be a block down the road, or she could be in Moscow, Bangkok, LA.
Over 2 million children a year are being sucked into the deepest recesses of hell. If we do nothing, someday it's gonna reach the likes of you. What if this was your daughter?
wherever I go, I find my way home.
Good morning, Owasso. This is the Twins with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. You saw the trailer. We were talking about earlier this week, kind of with all the trafficking and illegal immigration going on. You know, this Sound of Freedom movie came out really kind of at the perfect time. You know, at the peak of the illegal border crisis and all this nonsense. You know, I mean, this is a result of border policy. This is a result of that. And what amazes me is that, you know, this movie was obviously it came out last year in 2023, but what amazes me about it is how Disney shelved this thing. Now, obviously, this is not the kind of film that, you know, Disney would produce, but they could have, you know, released it under one of their tons of different, you know, what do you call it, conglomerate companies or whatever.
They're sub-companies.
Companies.
Exactly. They have a lot of companies that they want to do more adult pictures to try to win, like, academies. They usually make a new company, or they'll buy another company, and they'll release it through them.
So... so they shelved this thing, and Angel Studios, the guys that were working with them, finally got it back and said, we want this, and we want it released to the world, and it was a phenomenon. But what's more amazing about this whole thing is how the media reacted to it. I mean, even how mainstream reviewers reacted to it. Because to me, like, when Chad was reading, I don't know, what do you do? We'll start with the Rolling Stone one, right? You want to pull it, so... Just look at what they called it. Like, go look at the before you go into the article. Look at what it says on when you clicked into it.
Oh yeah, you mean the
yes. So if you could, show
right there. If you can see it on the screen right there, Sound of Freedom box office is a triumph for QAnon believers.
Triumph for QAnon believers. This is the Rolling Stone. This is what they are producing now. Again, this is a real issue. This is really happening. This is a true story. Now, like, the end scene where he rescues the little girl, that's quite embellished. You know, even Tim Ballard said, yeah, the ending of the movie is very, very embellished, but everything else is pretty much how it happened. So, I don't know why people were so against this movie, but I mean, it says a lot about Hollywood why they were so against this movie. I mean, clearly there's a lot of people. I mean, like Diddy, Epstein, all this happening right now. Like, clearly Hollywood's very, very implicated in this. And again, I mean, just check out what does the actual Rolling Stone article say? Like, what's its actual title?
See here, the Rolling Stone article, I have it pulled up here for those of you who are actually watching. Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. The QAnon tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of conspiracy-addled boomer.
Conspiracy-addled boomers. Guys, this movie is based on a real story. Like that, like they showed the actual footage of Tim Ballard on that island rescue.
Yeah.
Like they showed them saving the kids.
Yeah. Everything in the movie actually happened. It just didn't happen all at the same time. He goes, yes, I did do the thing where I posed as a human aid worker or whatever going in, except it wasn't for that. It was for a different thing. But so these events happened, but, you know, it's a movie. They embellished. They took the best parts of each thing to make a good movie out of it. But it's ridiculous.
It is, and it's truly insane that media and articles, but again, the left can't let conservatives or films like this have a win because it's all about the culture war. It doesn't matter that kids are getting trafficked and abused. What matters is that people on the right said stuff like this was happening and this is a result of border policy, and they're like, no, and then this movie comes out, shows it in a plain light for all to see. This is why film and culture is so important. But again, this is why Disney shelved it. This is why they didn't want to market this film out there.
Yep.
They don't want people knowing this stuff because it shows the disgusting truth going on out there in the world. If people knew, the outrage would be 10 times worse.
Yep.
And it was. I mean, like, this movie succeeded despite everything that they tried to do to shelve this thing.
Yep. 100%.
And it's going to speak. This movie is going to do more for border. If you're, I mean, what Tim Ballard said himself. If you are for open borders, you are for human trafficking, child abuse trafficking.
Yes. And then here's another Rolling Stones review. Here's another one for it. Why anti-trafficking experts are torching the sound of freedom.
Yes.
The new movie offers a false perception of child trafficking that experts worry could further harm real victims. And then the issue is with this is Tim Ballard this was his job. He was a part of the FBI's child, abuse group or whatever. So how could they say that it creates a false perception of things when this is what his job was? Now, granted, again, things have been embellished, but all great stories are embellished a little bit.
Gandalf the Grey said this. All great stories deserve a little embellishment, because that's how you sell narrative. That's the point of cinema. It's to tell a great story. But, I mean, it's also true. Again, not every aspect of the story is true, but everything that he did, like that little kid that he saved at the beginning that called him Timoteo, like that was real. He actually saved that kid, and he actually went to go find that little kid's sister. That was real. So it's absolutely appalling that, like the media is totally in lockstep with the narrative and the culture. It's like, oh, well, again, what you were talking about yesterday, plug your ears in your head, la, 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 it's not happening. The kids don't get trafficked. No kids get abused at the border. They're all, every person that crosses with a kid, it says that they're their parents, they're their parents. Believe all immigrants. # believe all immigrants.
Yeah. I mean, and here, I pulled up another one. Roger Ebert.
Yeah,
review.
This one is shocking.
He scorns it, too. He gives it 2 out of 4 stars. Says The Sound of Freedom, the movie of the moment, has a message first and a story second. Its message is to get us to care more about the horrors of child sex trafficking. It does that by showing queasy sequences of kids in danger being carted around by slimy adults, making us remember everyone's faces. And then it gives us a wary hero, Tim Ballard, an American man whose superpower is that he cares.
Stop. Isn't that the point? Like, you're supposed to show human stories, and you're supposed to remember, you want people to remember faces so they get attached to these characters. Like, you're attached to the little girl and her struggle. You're like, you feel awful for the situation she's in. It's like, what else are they supposed to do? How else they showed it they did it in a very tasteful way, I thought. Like, it wasn't, we knew what was happening, but they didn't show any real exploitation. They just had people walk in and you're like, oh, yep, I know what's about to happen now.
Yep.
And it again, it's like they don't want this stuff to be seen. It's like, what is the deal there, Roger Ebert? What is your deal? Like, it's a pretty darn good story. It might not be the most groundbreaking story ever told, but it achieves its goal. And again, it's like 2 stars. it's a message over story. It's like, I don't know. I mean, most people found it pretty entertaining.
Yeah. And as I would say that Hollywood it's showing Hollywood in a very bad light because Hollywood does a lot of these abuses right here. I mean, as soon as this gets taken care of, everyone's going to turn their attention to Hollywood, as we've seen. Like, I mean, we've got the Epstein stuff, we've got the P. Diddy stuff that's coming out, and then there's all this other stuff going on with the Democrats, like allowing this open border stuff to happen.
Yeah,
and Tim Ballard went on Joe Rogan and talked about this. He goes, yes. He goes, I have no doubt that any type of open border policy is actively harming all children in this type of event. So, and that's the thing, is like what we talked about yesterday with the human trafficking stuff going on. Not yesterday, probably a couple of days ago now, but all the human trafficking, they've lost track of over 300,000 kids.
Here in the United States, Joe Biden put kids on planes and just sent them wherever they had literally, they'll have stuff written on their wrists. They'll have addresses written on their wrist, and they'll say, "Fly me here." Like, the government is facilitating human trafficking, child trafficking, and we're just assuming that these addresses written on their we're sending them to their families. Okay, and we're just supposed to take an address written on a kid's arm at its word?
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on. I mean, either the government's up to some shady stuff or, like, they're facilitating evil.
And then just to prove that the critics get it wrong like 99% of the time, or at least 90% of the time. Look at this. The Rotten Tomatoes meter. Audience score, 99%. Reviewers score 57%. So why is it always that, like, the best movies out there are like the ones that the audience love and critics hate?
Yeah.
And then the ones that the critics love or tell us that we need to love, which is more DEI stuff, it's like these ones that are god awful, like all the new Star Wars.
Yeah, well, it's or it's like the Academy Award-winning movies where it's like it's a black, gay, trans protagonist, and it's his struggle to find acceptance in the world. It's like, nobody saw this movie, but it's the best movie ever made. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they're going for now. Again, they have DEI. It's like you have to have a certain number of people in your movie that are, you have to check a number of boxes for their race to make a good movie now. It's like, you don't have this many black people, this many Asian people, this many Hispanic people, you're not even going to be in the running for best film or best picture. So it's just, this is the decline of Hollywood. And this movie here, despite all their best efforts to suppress it, got out and people actually really enjoyed it. And it brought a lot of attention to a horrible, horrible thing going on right now because of open border policies. So, I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, I definitely recommend you go out and watch it. It's hard. Some parts are very difficult to watch because it involves implied child abuse. You don't see anything. Again, it's done very well. It's done very tastefully. So there's no reason to not watch it. But yes, it is a tough watch because if you have empathy and you care about kids, you will be. It'll be gut wrenching, like, I mean, you'll shed a tear or two because the performances are that powerful, and the subject matter is that disturbing. It's like that whole Roger Ebert thing. It's like his superpower is that he cares too much. Like, Roger, you realize this man actually went out and did all of these things. Like, he quit his job before he could get his pension to go and rescue kids in foreign countries. It's like, how insulting is that? His superpower is that he cares too much. Like, get wrecked, Roger Ebert. God. Anyway, what else did you got? Where were you?
I mean, I don't really have much more other than that right there. Is just if you want to pull anything else, I could pull up some of the stuff that we had before from the O'Keefe groups of showing, like, the actual, like, trafficking and stuff like that.
Yeah, if you want to
show that we're not just, out of our depth here.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. So, yeah, you can keep just, like, talking
but
about the movie. I mean, you could just talk about, like, some of your best parts of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, well, the movie starts off with, Tim Ballard hunting a single pedophile that's trafficking a kid across the borders for him to abuse. And they get this guy, and then Tim Ballard befriends him and eventually cons him into going, I want to be a pedophile like you, and I want to experience and have the pleasures of children like you. And the guy actually ends up believing him. And again, this is something that happened in real life, and they get this kid and they save him. And then this is the kid that he goes, can you find my sister too? And this is when he quits his job and goes to Mexico to go find this little girl. And then he facilitates a island where they're going to bring kids for adult fun time, and then they arrest everybody that comes to the island, and they save a bunch of kids. And then he has to go but he doesn't find the little girl, of course, and then that's when he goes undercover as a UN worker and goes in to save the little girl, which is all very embellished. But like I said, still, it's a good movie, good plot, and it has a good resolution. So, despite all the evil that took place throughout the entire film, but yeah, I mean, it's good. You know, it's a really good film, so you should definitely check it out. I give it 2 thumbs up, and it's definitely always worth a watch. So, Sound of Freedom, powerful stuff, man. Very, very, very powerful film. And there's other characters in it that are really good as well. Like you have the cartel, the former cartel boss that helps him facilitate this setup, and like that's how people take him seriously. And his arc is really good, you know, like he, again, a former crime lord that, you know, basically has every pleasure that he could ever want in life. And then he realizes one day that he was hooking up with like a 13-year-old girl, and it broke him, like turned his life around. Like he was still involved in like the shady underworld, but he actually spent most of his time rescuing traffic victims is what he spent a lot of his, his ill-gotten gains to do, which was a really cool kind of thing. So it's yeah, again, fun characters. Jim Caviezel's great. He does a great job performing as Tim Ballard, and again, I just don't understand all the hate behind the film. You know, again, I think the people hating on the movie, it says a lot more about them than it does about the people that like the movie. So, what you got for us, buddy?
Well, I just pulled this up. It is a Senate hearing here. I'm about to change it to the multi-screen here real quick. Got to full screen it. Yeah, but this is a Senate hearing claiming that the U.S. is the middleman in a child trafficking operation. So we're about to see what this is all about. I actually haven't seen this. I was looking up for that information, and this is the first thing that popped up. So I'll be interested to see what this is all about.
All right.
This is Ms. Rodas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Chairman McClintock, Ranking Member Japal, and distinguished members of the committee. It is an honor to be here. I thank you for the invitation to share my testimony. My goal is to inspire action to safeguard the lives of migrant children, including the staggering 85,000 that are missing. Today, children will work overnight shifts at slaughterhouses, factories, restaurants to pay their debts to smugglers and traffickers. Today, children will be sold for sex. Today, children will call a hotline to report they are being abused, neglected, and trafficked, and we don't know if they're going to get the help they need. For nearly a decade, unaccompanied children have been suffering in the shadows, and I have to confess I knew nothing about their suffering until 2021 when I volunteered to help the Biden administration with the crisis at the southern border. As part of Operation Artemis, I was deployed to the Pomona Fairplex Emergency Intake Site in California to help HHS, Office of Refugee Resettlement, reunite children with sponsors in the United States. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off of the lives of children. As for me, my interest is the safety of the children. I do not view this as a political issue. I view this as a humanitarian issue. I assure you, my motives are the highest and best. I want the children protected. So I want to tell you some of what I witnessed personally at the Pomona Fairplex. I saw vulnerable indigenous children from Guatemala who speak Mayan dialects and cannot speak Spanish. That means they cannot ask for help in English. They cannot ask for help in Spanish. They become captives of their sponsors. I have sat with case managers as they've cried to tell me the horror of what has happened to children as they make the journey to this country. I saw apartment buildings where 20, 30, and 40 unaccompanied minors have been released. I saw sponsors trying to simultaneously sponsor children from multiple ORR sites at one time. I saw sponsors using multiple addresses to obtain sponsorships of children. And I saw numerous cases of children in debt bondage, and the child knew they had to stay with the sponsor until the debt was paid. Realizing that we were not offering the children the American dream, but instead putting them in modern-day slavery with wicked overlords, was a terrible revelation. A terrible revelation. These children are a captive victim population with no access to law enforcement or knowledge of their rights.
Well, there you go, folks. That's someone who was there and witnessed it all. You know, again, this is all connected. Everything is absolutely connected. The child trafficking, this Tim Ballard story, the open borders. These are all secondary causes or secondary happenings because of the open border policies. And again, this is what happens when toxic empathy takes over an entire party of people. Democrats, they have toxic empathy. I mean, not the people in power. The people in power don't care. But they've weaponized the ignorant people in the Democratic Party to have toxic empathy for the world. Let us take on the world's problems. It's like, no, let's solve our problems here for local people, for American citizens. And once every citizen has got their crap together, once every citizen is not going to be left behind, and they all going to be able to be productive members of society, they're all going to have a job and a roof over their heads, then we can start reaching out and trying to help everybody else. But until that point in time, maybe we should focus our efforts here and not bring in the world and the problems they have. Maybe we should halt immigration. We should halt immigration until we can hunt down these 10 million illegal immigrants that have come over in the last 4 years and get rid of all of them. Does that sound unreasonable? I know it's going to be a tough thing to do. You're going to see a lot of tears and a lot of people trying to weaponize tears to reactivate people's toxic empathy again. But they have got to go. They cannot have cheated the way they have done. Like, again, these are sophisticated criminal networks trafficking these people over here. We have to stop this.
Yes.
And again, if we stop this, and at least we can stop the human trafficking of children from outside the United States in the United States. There are still going to be kids that are kidnapped and bad things will happen to them here in the U.S. But if we can stop the external forces coming to do it, then we can focus on the internal forces and try to make this country a much safer place for them here.
Yep.
Again, citizens first.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But if that's really about all we've got, like I said, I've got James O'Keefe's debut film, Line in the Sand, to play us out with if you're ready to sign us off. But this will show that the truth behind the illegal immigrant smuggling operations
and again,
have been going
remember,
on.
James O'Keefe he used to have, it was Project Veritas, but then he got kicked out and he just started his own O'Keefe Media Group, which has already eclipsed Project Veritas.
OMG Media Group, or James O'Keefe Media Group, but OMG.
Yeah, so, he's awesome. He does amazing work. He's probably the most important journalist besides Alex Jones working in the world today. So, with that being said, this is the Twins with Owasso Live. This was our movie review of The Sound of Freedom. Less of a movie review and more of a kind of a cultural critique of people reacting to it. But either way, that's about all I've got for you today. This is Twins with Owasso Live. We are signing off, so God bless you.
See you later, everybody.
We got an unaccompanied minor right here, guys. This is heartbreaking right here.
See the handcuffs?
Those criminals are being put with the kids?
Yep.
They're putting the criminals with the kids. Does sacrificing your value system and integrity to feed your family make you a bad person?
They're putting blinders on right now to stop us from seeing what's happening.
There seemed to be an internal struggle between doing what people perceived as the morally right thing and pursuing their livelihood.
You can't move 500,000 children in 3 years if you're asking a lot of questions.
Maybe it's all just human nature. Maybe the powers that be know that.
That is
Let's go. Stop the car. Stop the car.
Where are you going?
This is very upsetting.
They're right there. Get down.
They're in the secret facility right now. It's just all about money.
There's a car right there. They got ladders.
In front of me are all the migrants. We're headed north.
It's not about people. How much money are you making off of this crisis?
$1 billion.
Every single agent knows deep in his heart what's going on is wrong.
I know you're just trying to do your job.
We're taking children, we're then delivering them to people who they don't even know.
Okay. What's happening inside that facility?
You know what's happening here?
They all protect each other. The NGOs.
They got some spotlight on us.
The federal government.
This is dangerous.
I don't think we can trust anybody.
America, we made it. I'm the king of the world. Follow the journey of the immigrants.
I can't do this, guys.
The journey of the children.
Oh, this is big time.
We're in a cartel tunnel now, dog. We're in a cartel tunnel.
And the journey into human nature. Some things can't be read in a book or a newspaper. They must instead be lived.
There's nobody here to stop this. There's nobody.